Hello, everyone. Welcome to our third and final day of a new coffee industry. My name is Brett. Uh, I'm the producer of the Map It Forward podcast. It's the first time being being live, which is pretty exciting. Um, we started off the event on Tuesday with Christopher Farron and Jamie Isitz with an incredible presentation on sourcing and how we're going to have to really change how we think about creating relationships, sourcing green coffee, and how we have to adapt to the new times. Yesterday with Ann Cooper, we got a really comprehensive rundown on roasting, every step of the way, what you do, and obviously more importantly why you do it. I felt as someone who's never roasted coffee before, uh, I felt extremely educated. And today, our guest, who I'm so proud to introduce to you, um, she's the founder of Map It Forward, which has been for 3 years now, educating all of us about parts of the coffee industry that haven't really been discussed quite enough. And she's also the CEO of Elixir Specialty Coffee, um, and has a presentation today on leadership and not only leading others, which is usually how leadership is presented, but also leading yourself when we get rocked to our core, like a lot of us are. I think it's really important to be able to take a step back and consider, yeah, how do I lead myself through these challenges? Um, and yeah, very proud to call her a friend, call her a coworker. Um, I'm really excited to introduce to you today, Lee Safar.
Welcome, everybody. I'm extremely proud to be here with you, and I'm extremely proud to have been introduced by Brett. Brett is the producer, as you heard, of the podcast and of all the technical stuff that you've been seeing on here, and I'm incredibly proud to work with him and to mentor him through what has been an incredibly interesting time for our business through COVID-19, and to watch him evolve into the professional that has just met every challenge possible has just been inspiring and really great. So thank you, Brett, for that great introduction. And I just want to take a second to thank the other speakers who have been so generous in the information and open-hearted and open-minded approach that they took to sharing with us over the last 2 days. I've learnt so much. I've got a lot of takeaways that I want to bring to the podcast after the ideas that they shared with us. There's a lot of things that have come out of this. One in particular has been that there are mastermind group coaching sessions going to happen with Ann Cooper and with myself that we've now made available on mapitforward.org/coaching. And I'll talk a little bit about my group coaching sessions that we're making available later in the presentation. But this has been a fantastic 2 days so far, and I hope that I do you proud by the leadership information that I'm about to share with you. I'm incredibly honored that later today, Kira Kennedy is going to join me. But for those of you who are newbies to the Map It Forward platform, welcome. Map It Forward is not your usual coffee industry platform. We have tasked ourselves with the responsibility of giving you permission and showing you how to Make up your mind for yourself what you believe about coffee and what you don't. And the way that we believe that you can best do that is to get as informed as possible and stop following people who don't know what the fuck they're talking about. If we can shift the onus of information from other people onto yourself and provide you with the learning tools to empower yourself with the information, we can create better leaders. We can create people who are taking better responsibility. And so if we can empower you with the ability to do that, we hope that that leads to you making more informed choices. And if you're making better informed choices, you're not only making them for yourself, you're making them for everyone around you as well as the value chain. But you can't do that if you don't get well informed. So if you're new to our Mapper Forward experience and the content that we bring to the coffee industry, you may sense that it's a little different than the way that a lot of other people do things. And we think that there's some fabulous content being produced out there. We're just a little different. We make no apologies for it. Excuse me. Whereas authentic and as honest as it comes, and we invite you to step into that same space, and you'll see why through this presentation we do things the way that we do. So it's great to have you. Our intention and our flow for today is going to be three-tiered. So today is brought to you by Baratza and Elixir Specialty Coffee. Baratza and Elixir Specialty Coffee have covered the costs involved in everything today. And it is because of the contributions of both of those businesses that we're able to offer this information for free. And we couldn't be prouder. And I just want to thank particularly Baratza for showing up for me. The CEO, Kira Kennedy, is a dear, dear friend of mine. And I value that friendship very much, and I'm very proud of it. And one thing that I hope that you come away with from this workshop is that the quality of people that you surround yourself with determines the quality of your life. And so today, we're going to show you how to get there. In the first session, we're going to define leadership with acute clarity, which is a lot more difficult than you might think, I promise you. In the second half of the presentation, we're going to be looking at leading in uncertain times. So we're going to talk specifically about COVID-19 and all that it's brought with it. We're going to take a quick 10-minute break, and then I get to have a discussion with my dear friend Kira Kennedy. So I hope that you'll join us the whole way through. If you are watching after the live chat, we hope that you get as much out of this as everyone who did join the live chat. Excuse me. We will be asking you to take notes and things like that throughout this. So if you haven't got a pen and paper or something to write some notes on, take a second and quickly grab them now. Before we deep dive into all of this, I want to preface the whole presentation by saying leadership is a lifelong journey. You're not going to learn everything you need to know about leadership in a 3-hour presentation. You're not even going to learn everything you need to know about leadership in 3 years. Leadership is a lifelong journey, and no matter how many people tell you that they can teach you about leadership, just when you think you know everything there is to know about leadership, leadership comes and teaches you a whole bunch of other stuff. So my motto when it comes to doing anything that's hard, and understanding leadership is one of the very hard things you'll do in your life, is get comfortable with the discomfort of what's coming. The other thing that I want to make sure that we understand for today is what will success feel like at the end of this presentation for you. If you've left here with a truckload of questions for a lifelong conversation with yourself, then I know I've done my job. We don't believe at Mapper Forward in giving you any answers. And you'll see on there, on the screen right now, something that says having a map is important. Questions, what we call compass questions, are the questions that will guide you along a map that will take you to wherever it is you have decided to go. In the coffee industry, after almost 20 years working in this industry, the one thing I can tell you that we absolutely en masse suffer from is a lack of direction, which is what Map It Forward was born of. The desire to create direction to help people get towards professionalism, and a professionalism that they can be proud of and that has meaning and purpose. And that's stemmed in the idea of people leading themselves. So again, if you leave here with a truckload of questions, not answers, then I've done my job. So let's go. All right. Excuse me. Defining leadership is an incredibly curious thing. I was thinking about, well, if we're going to talk to people about how to lead themselves and help them understand why that's such an important building block to understanding how to lead other people, we better define what leadership really means. In the olden days, we had a book, it was called a dictionary. And if we wanted to find the definition of something, we would go there. Today we have Google. So I decided to go on the Google journey of defining leadership and see where it took me. If you look up the word leadership, the definition is the action of leading a group of people or an organization. That doesn't really mean anything. It really doesn't mean anything. When you read it again, the action of leading a group of people or an organization. So we dig a little deeper. So what is a leader? A leader is a person who leads or commands a group, organization, or country. Okay. But what does it mean to lead? Because that also doesn't really tell us what leading is. It just tells us what the action looks like. Well, let's dig even deeper than that. What does it mean to lead? And this goes to the core of what this whole discussion is about. To lead means to a cause. There are a bunch of definitions for leading. This is the first one. To lead a cause, it's to cause an animal or a person to go with one by holding them by the hand, a halter, a rope, etc., while moving forward. So let's think about that for a second. To lead is to cause something or someone to go with you by taking them there. Okay. You can take them there in different ways. You can either take them by the hand, a halter, or a rope. That's one definition for what it is to lead. But here are another 4 definitions. The second one says, to lead is be a route or a means of access to a particular place or a particular direction. Okay, so that's kind of creating a map. So the first one was to take people somewhere. The second definition is to create a map to get people somewhere. The third definition is to be in charge or command of people. That sounds like one way that people look at leading. Number 4, have the first place, be ahead of. So competing is the 4th way of leading. And have an experience. So leading by experience is the 5th way of leading. As you can see, the idea of what it means to lead, Google gives you 5 different definitions of what that means. It's not so easy to define what it means to lead. And that's important to understand, especially in an industry like the coffee industry, where the barrier to entry is so low that you don't have to really have any skills to be able to enter it, or any training in leadership, financial management, business understanding in order to own a business, and yet you're going to be responsible for people. So when we look at those 5 different understandings of what leadership is, and let's just revisit them for a second. So the first one says leading is taking people somewhere. The second one is you're creating a map for people. The third one is to be in charge of people. The fourth one is to be competitive. And the fifth one is to lead by experience. I want to take from there the idea that we're going to break down some old constructs. None of those leadership styles are incorrect. There's an idea. My good is your bad. His right is her wrong. The same applies to leadership. Some leadership styles are all about competitiveness, where a leader is inspiring their team. We have to beat everyone. We have to blow everybody else up, and we have to eat up all the market share, and we do it at all costs. My leadership style is different. My leadership style is that we understand what we're doing. We're focused on a particular strategy. We know what we're trying to achieve. We're not competing with anybody. We're trying to achieve our objectives in the best way possible, and we're focused on doing it better today than we did it yesterday. That's not competitive. That's a focused leadership style. My leadership style is wrong in comparison, or bad in comparison to the person who's competitive, whose leadership style is all about being competitive. And if I was to look at their leadership style, I would look at that and say, well, where does that actually get you? They're not right or wrong. They're different. And so I want you to take away the idea that the way that anybody leads is right or wrong, or good or bad. I'm going to empower you with a different set of communication skills and some words today that are going to empower you. Instead of using ambiguous words like good leadership or bad leadership, we're going to arm you with tools that help you describe leadership styles with much more efficiency and intention. Leading yourself is foundational to leading others. And the idea of do as I say, not what I do, is absolutely a shit leadership style. It goes to the heart of the idea of why foundational leadership is so important. Leading yourself is so foundational. If I am telling you, you have to be respectful of your coworkers, and I'm treating you like shit, I want you to think for a second, what is the core thing that you, as the person watching me as a leader, feels in that moment? What do you think of me if I am telling you to respect your coworkers, but I treat you like shit? I'm not showing you respect. I'm doing the do as I say, not what I do. The fundamental thing that's lacking there is that you're not going to trust me. Now, if you can't trust me as a leader, you're not going to go with me on the journey that I'm hoping to take us all on as a group, as a team. And the moment you get something that's a better offer for you, that makes you feel safe, that makes you inspired, you're going to go. And it's important to understand as a leader that until you've put the work into understanding what it is to lead yourself, and that's a very difficult, very hard, but very rewarding journey. Until you have done the work to do that, you can at best aim to be an average leader. Controversial stuff being said here, but I promise you it's all founded in experience and research and knowledge. When we talk about the idea of self-leadership, this is where I want to start. This is the foundation of leading yourself, personal responsibility. And COVID-19 has been masterful at exposing so much of where we sit on the sliding scale with regards to personal responsibility. I have watched our industry go from the type of people who have seen what was going on with COVID-19 and have stepped into it and taken responsibility for themselves and figured it out. And on the other spectrum, I have seen people say, I need money and I need someone to save me. It's other people's responsibility to fix this situation for me. And I would like for you to think about, it doesn't matter where you sit on that scale right now. That's not important. What is important is you take the experience of how you observed yourself and consider how you would have liked this to play out. And then decide to go on the journey of being somebody who takes personal responsibility for the quality of the life that they're leading, the quality of the career that they're experiencing. I hear a lot in our industry. I get a lot of people contact me and say things like, I hate my job. My boss is an asshole. I hate my coworkers. The industry's broken. Why can't people do better in the supply chain? It's a lot of blame. Anyone who I'll mentor will tell you that I usually come back with this one question. How are you showing up? How are you showing up for yourself in your career? Are you palming off responsibility to your coworkers? Are you palming off responsibility to your boss? And if you think that they are the problem, I want you to dig deeper on personal responsibility. Why are you still there? If you're working around shit people in a shit job, doing something that you hate, why are you still there? The personal responsibility for your happiness and your safety and your success rests on you. We're going to dig deep on this moving forward. Excuse me. You, yes, you are entitled to a wonderful life. Once you know what that means for you, you have an important choice to make, and this will define your ability to lead you and others. The question is, am I prepared to do the real work, the very hard work that's necessary to create the life I have chosen? And I make no, I'm not going to dress this up for you in telling you, hey, being a self-leader and a self-starter is going to be super easy. It is the exact polar opposite of that. Deciding to lead and take personal responsibility for your life and what success and happiness and wealth means to you, whether it be in the coffee industry or anywhere, is a hard, ugly, difficult, inspiring, well worth it journey that you're going to go on. And here's what I can promise you about this journey. Beginner's luck is a real thing. Once you've decided what it is that you would like to achieve in your life as leading yourself, and what I mean by leading yourself, choosing what it is that is the quality of life that you want to have for yourself, what kind of a career you want to have. Do you want to be a business owner? Do you want to be a green buyer? Do you want to have a podcast? And how you're going to lead yourself to those goals. Beginner's luck, once you've decided what that is a very real thing. And it's fueled by all the passion that you're going to have for that journey. And it is fantastic and you should absolutely take advantage of it. Everything will fall into place in the beginning and you will go for however long you go until you hit your first hard thing. Once you hit your first hard thing, which is the first fear thing that you encounter, you will start to doubt yourself. you will feel in a very real way that the beginner's luck is going away and this shit is difficult. And you will start to question whether you want to do this anymore. And this is where most people fall off. You will want to quit many, many times, I assure you of that. Because once the first hard thing shows up, you'll start to think, am I really made out for this thing? Is becoming a green buyer really something that I can do? I didn't know that I was going to have to do all these spreadsheets. I just thought it was going to be traveling to Origin all this amazing amount of times. Nobody told me all this difficult stuff. And what that's really saying is, this is exposing the stuff that I don't know how to do. And a leader looks at the stuff that I don't know how to do and goes off the loop of, this is too hard, I'm not worth it, I'm not good enough. You get off that loop very quickly and you go straight to solutions. That's what a great leader does. But learning how to do that is a journey. And that journey needs to be taken in learning how to do that with you before you can inspire other people and teach other people and motivate other people how to do that. Not quitting and having the courage to face what the hard thing, the fear, is trying to free you from, will form you into a human that is confident, authentic, and has integrity, as well as being able to face anything and face uncertain times with enthusiasm, strength, courage, and vulnerability. I'm not saying this to you because I hope and pray that this is how it works, and I've read this in books. I assure you, I have lived a million lifetimes in this life. I've done extraordinarily difficult things, things that I wish that I never had to do, learned things about myself that have almost broken me, and have mentored many, many people in business and in life to do the same thing. Whew. And I would do it all again to be able to be sitting here in front of you and hopefully inspiring you to take the very, very worthwhile journey of freeing yourself from all your fear so that you learn to choose to work for people who deserve you to be working for them, and that you then go on to mentor people to be the best versions of themselves in the way that you lead them. This is my greatest wish for the coffee industry and the legacy that I hope to leave behind. Hard things will continue to show up, no matter how masterful you get at dealing with them. It's just that what you think is hard, I might think is easy. What you think is easy, I might think to be difficult and terribly hard and almost debilitating. We all have unique experiences. And empathy is a really strong heart muscle to build to help you face the hard things. Once you've done these kinds of hard things, what it means that you can see other people going through hard things. And what that means is that you can then mentor someone through going through those hard things. An example of that is when you are leading a team and you can see that one of your staff members is down and depressed and not really doing their best quality work. I've lived with depression and anxiety most of my life, and I used the idea of being a self-leader as a way to change all of that for myself. When I see someone is depressed and down, I can see that that's a telltale sign that they're going through hard stuff. And I know how to mentor them through that. But the only reason I know how to do that is because I have done it many, many times myself. You going through the experience of knowing what it is to lead yourself and create the quality of life that you've chosen for yourself is the best preparation that you can have for leading others. It will expose you to the fundamental skills that are required to recognize when other people are having challenges. And that's what a leader should be, a person that is able to anticipate the blind spots that are coming. You have walked in a leadership path, doing the kinds of things that other people have done before when you are leading them. The other thing that I can promise you is that you will be less likely to quit because you trust yourself to lead with more confidence than you did before. When you've done hard things again and again and again and again, the more that you do them, the more inspired you become by having come out the other side. And if you think that what I'm talking about is ludicrous, please go and speak to anybody who has done hard stuff. And I assure you that they will tell you the same thing. In the beginning, they wanted to quit. They were less likely to quit as they went deeper into this journey. It's like a trial through fire. And we are definitely being put through those paces in COVID. So you'll see how all of this comes together in a minute. Even harder things will show up and the cycle goes on. This is, as I said at the top of the presentation, leadership is a lifelong journey, and different versions of hard will show up just when you start to get comfortable. And that's just the way that it goes. The most important thing I can promise you that will come out of choosing to lead yourself is this. You will have a very, very full life. Didn't expect that any of this was going to make me emotional. I'm very proud of the people that I have around me because I have got to bear witness of their very hard journeys. And I've got to bear witness of the way that they have inspired me to continue going in my very full life. And there are times when you will think through your leadership journey that you are going to break. Money's really tight. People are being assholes. COVID-19 shows up. You don't know what's coming. All of that stuff, all that hard stuff we talked about happens. And then you will have those beautiful moments, like right this moment in my life, where you see something on a screen that says you will have a very full life. And you know that you did the hard stuff. And you're very proud of it. And if I had to say what was a very key thing that you will need for this journey, I promise to stop being emotional. It is grit. And what is grit, you might say? Grit is having the passion and perseverance to achieve a long-term goal. And if I'm big on research, I'm big on psychology and understanding the research that goes behind being able to achieve great things in leadership. Angela Lee Duckworth is the world-leading expert on grit and has done a lot of work on generational understandings of grit and defining it, and you should check out her work. So when you decide that you are going to go on the journey of self-leadership, business leadership, whatever it is, having passion and perseverance to achieve a long-term goal is your best friend. And everybody that is successful, whatever they deem success to be, will tell you that you will see it in them. They have grit. And they're building. This building of success that they have created is built on a concrete slab rather than out of a house of cards. Everything we've just said, everything we've just talked about when it comes to self-leadership is 100% applicable to business leadership. When we talk about doing the hard stuff, business is going to bring you to your knees. Leading other people is going to bring you to your knees. Excuse me. When just in the moments that you think that you have everything in control, COVID-19 shows up. Just when you thought, it's okay, we're hanging on by a string. I'm super proud of myself for just being able to cover rent last month. COVID-19 shows up. going into business, and if it's not COVID-19, it'll be something else. A shipping container that you're waiting on doesn't show up. This coffee that you thought was amazing when you tasted it at Origin turns up and it's super expensive and it just cups horribly. Things are going to go wrong. You're going to decide to go on a business journey and you will have beginner's luck, I promise you. And however long beginner's luck lasts for is determinant on how long it takes you to hit your very first hard thing. And then you'll hit your very first hard thing, and the way that you handle that will determine whether you go on. I promise you, if you have gone on the journey of self-leadership before you go on the journey of leading others or starting a business, hitting that first hard thing will equip you with the tools of saying, oh, I know what this feels like. This is going to be hard, but I'm ready. I'm ready. I know how to do hard things. I'm not going to engage in I'm not good enough and I don't know what to do. I know that I have a group of people around me that I can pick up the phone and call, or I know how to problem solve this myself. And that is such an important life skill to have that serves you in every part of your life. I have this saying, going into business is going to teach you everything you never wanted to know about yourself. And that's the exact reason that you should do it. It will expose every fear along the journey that you've ever had. That is the point of going on a self-leadership journey, going on a journey of leading other people, and going on the journey of having a business. If you're doing it for purely the idea of building wealth in money, you're building a house of cards. Excuse me. If you're going on this journey knowing what you want to get out of it, nothing says that you can't do it to make amazing amounts of money. But if you don't understand that this thing is going to kick the shit out of you, then you're going to crumble and you're not going to be prepared to face the dragon that's going to show up again and again and again and again. So, my intentions as a leader. If we take a look at how leading myself, leading my team, leading my business, and how leading in my industry is all related, you'll get a greater understanding of why it's important to start with leading yourself. So I'm going to talk about my journey as a way of stepping into my vulnerability and helping you see what it is. About 13 years ago, I completely derailed my life and left a corporate job that was earning me a lot of money. I left a marriage and I stepped into the coffee industry and to the music industry at the same time. I left the country that I was living in. I left everything and I was disowned by my family. And I went and decided to live a very fulfilling life. And I had no idea what the fuck that meant at the time. What kind of perspective do you have at 28 when you do that to yourself? And you have, at that time, believed that you are incredibly happy. What I did was the ultimate way of completely putting yourself in the deepest level of shit that you can possibly consider. I didn't have any money. I didn't have support. I didn't have anything other than this idea that I would only know in 10 years, excuse me, if this was going to work. We all know that it turns out well. The story turns out well. But that journey over 10 years was all about me having to completely deconstruct what I believed, what my values were, how to make choices, how to take responsibility for myself. what my culture was. What was the culture I wanted to exist up here in my head and here in my heart? And what was the culture that I wanted to exist around me? I had to decide what my life currencies are, and I had to decide, and this was the thing that took me the longest, what success really meant for me. Because I assure you, what success meant for me back then is very different to what success means for me today, and it is directly tied to what life currencies are. And just very quickly, life currencies are the thing in your life that makes you feel wealthy. And we're going to create a 12-week series that you can attend later this year that goes through and talks intensely about how to define your life currencies, how to apply them to your leadership, how to apply them to your business. It comes with KPIs, so it's all very real. So life currencies is a concept that I've come up with that is not woo-woo at all. My life currencies, the things that make me feel wealthy beyond belief and have shifted my understanding of what success means, are peace of mind, number one. If I have an abundance of peace of mind, it means that I have led myself to a place that allows me to put my head on a pillow every night and sleep like a baby. That is my number one feeling of wealth in the world. It means that I have been responsible and earned the money required to pay my bills. I have good people and not toxic people in my life so that I have no drama. I am in a safe place. I am housed well. All of the things that are necessary to live a life that has peace of mind. That's my number one life currency. Number two is flow. My whole life needs to be in flow. I need to feel like every time something hard shows up, I'm not avoiding it, because by avoiding something that's hard, I'm stopping my flow. So getting into flow means not avoiding things. It means seeing them when they show up, taking action, and not going on that self-doubt loop. Growth is the third life currency. I always want to be doing better today than I did yesterday, but I need to understand what better means before I can do that. Purpose. Purpose is the next life currency. I need to understand why I've been doing this. And if I'm not understanding the purpose behind why I'm doing this, well, then I'm adhering to a different leadership style than what I have. I'm then being competitive, and I'm not a competitive person. So peace of mind, flow, growth, purpose, freedom. Freedom has been something that my journey has given me a masterful thesis and doctorate level understanding of. Being born in a family, an Arab family that had different understandings. Each member of my family had a different understanding of what freedom meant. And then living in the Australian culture, being born into the Australian culture in an Arab family, and then going and traveling and being in a music industry, being in a corporate world, being in the coffee industry, understanding the coffee supply chain, owning businesses. All of these very rich things that I've done and very rich experiences have added to my understanding of what freedom means and what freedom doesn't mean. Having stuff, having 3 mortgages, having a really well-paying job, is that freedom? Or is living as a minimalist and not having a lot of stuff, what kind of freedom does that afford you? Going on a self-leadership journey allows you the opportunity to try and test different things that empower you when the people you're leading, the business that you're leading, have to make other decisions. You are well equipped to inform and mentor. Connectedness is the 6th life currency. It is important to me to build relationships and be connected to the things that matter to me and the people that matter to me. And that's not something that I'm great at. It's something I'm actually really terrible at. And I went on the journey of wanting to build wealth. I wanted it for my life. I knew I was really bad at it. And in order to build wealth in it, I had to go on the self-leadership journey of understanding how to cultivate better relationships, how to welcome people in, how to look at the very hard thing in that leadership endeavor, which was trusting other people and addressing that and moving through it. And then the last one is clarity. Clarity is an important currency because without it, you're living in a pool of bullshit. And if you allow yourself to buy into the bullshit, you can't make decisions with intention and all the information that you need. Now, they're my 7 life currencies, and I use them as the foundational element of being able to make decisions for myself. But I take that whole foundational leadership structure, and you can send Brett an email and ask him. I take exactly the way that I lead myself and apply it to my team. I apply the exact same thing to the way that I run my business and apply KPIs to that so that we can track how are we doing with regards to our wealth in peace of mind and freedom and purpose and connectedness and growth. We have KPIs associated with that. And then being a leader in your industry, once you've demonstrated to yourself and to your team and to your business that you are a great leader, you just naturally become somebody who is seen as an influencer, someone who leads in an industry. And that is because your whole life, your whole business, your whole structure as a person is built on a foundational concrete slab rather than a house of cards. And just a side note, please stop idolizing people in coffee or anywhere else, because this is a really bad leadership strategy for self-leadership. I want you to unhook yourself from that and just start with the idea of, I'm going to start on the journey of learning how to be led by myself rather than led by other people. Map It Forward is all about empowering you to own your informed decisions and understand why you're making them. So you can't do that if you're idolizing other people for no reason, for any reason. Don't idolize anybody. It's not a healthy place to come from. So we spoke about there being 3 leadership styles, 3.5 leadership styles. In the Eventbrite description for this event, I promised you that we were going to talk about 3.5 leadership styles. So what are they? We're going to start with the analogy of a seesaw. And I'm hoping that seesaw is a word that's used in America. I tried to see if there was a different word, but seesaw seems to be the universal word. Now we're going to talk about 3 different leadership styles. Now I call them leadership styles. They apply to self-leadership and they apply to other when you're leading a team or a business. And remember when we were talking about good leadership and bad leadership and right leadership and wrong leadership? Well, I promised you that we were going to empower you with different tools that would help you identify in very concrete, descriptive ways how to name leadership styles. So here are 3.5 leadership styles that you can use that will encapsulate any other kind of way that you want to describe leadership that is non-descriptive. So let's start with passive leaders. This is what passive leaders, what being a passive leader means. And at this time, I just want to direct you to a wonderful supplemental webinar that was led by Dr. Jamie Berry that we offer at Map It Forward. And we have, through this pandemic, it is 50% off. Go and take it. It is an incredibly powerful tool. It's an assertiveness workshop, which is a foundational thing that will be really great for what we're about to talk about. Everybody that's taken it, the feedback has been outstanding to their lives. So the first leadership style, passivity. So being a passive leader, what does that mean? And this is how Dr. Jamie Berry, who is one of the leading neuropsychologists in Australia, passivity is the behavior or speech whereby a person forgoes their rights by withholding their opinions, feelings, and wants. So they abuse their own rights. Now, I asked you to have a pen and paper ready with you. I want you to take a look at these characteristics of passive people and leaders. And I want you to have a quick read of those and try and identify which of those you can identify with. Are you a pushover? Are you non-confrontational? Are you submissive, indecisive, over-empathetic, or any of those other things? I want you to write them down. And I'll just give you a couple of seconds to do that. We're going to visit this list in a little bit. But it's important for you to understand which of these characteristics that you can identify with as a person and as a leader. We see a lot of this in the coffee industry. People seeing other people confront them and them not wanting to be confrontational because they think that not being confrontational is the best way that they can manage this situation and not be dramatic and not be aggressive. Well, you're about to hear some things, friends, if that's what you're all about. So take a second to do that. And yeah, as I said, do you identify with any of these characteristics? Now, the next leadership style is aggressive leadership. Aggressive leadership is defined by Dr. Jamie Berry as the behavior or speech whereby a person gets their needs met at the expense of others. So in passive personality, in passive people or in passive leadership, excuse me, you allow people to walk all over your rights. In aggressive leadership, you walk all over other people's rights. You're not respecting other people's rights. So I want you to take a look at this list and I want you to ask yourself the question, do you identify with any of these characteristics? And aggressive isn't necessarily aggressive in the way of you shout at people and you yell at people and that's not the only way you can be aggressive. Aggressive can also be viewed as you talk over people because you're so passionate and you just have to be the person that has the loudest opinion. And so there is a way of being aggressive that is masked as being helpful. So these are the kinds of characteristics. I want you to write down if you identify with any of these. Some of them are more extreme than others, but these are all this is an extensive list of characteristics of people who are abusers of people's rights, people who are aggressive. So they are an abuser of people's rights. They're verbally, emotionally abusive. They cast blame. There's a lot of that happens in our industry. They accuse people and criticize and humiliate and dominate. Overly competitive people are very aggressive and they're controlling. So take a look there for a minute at all of those and write down if you're any of those. The third leadership style sits right in the middle of this seesaw, and it's called assertive leadership. Now, oftentimes when we hear the word assertive, it is misbranded as aggression. There is an incredibly wide gap between the idea of what aggressive and assertive means. And as you can see from this seesaw, if passive is at one end and aggressive is at the other end, assertive sits right in the middle. And so this is what assertiveness means. Assertiveness is the behavior or speech whereby a person clearly and openly expresses their opinions, feelings, and wants without violating the rights of others. There are no abuses of rights. It requires you to understand, though, what your rights are and what the rights of other people are. Assertive requires you to go on a journey of understanding where your boundaries are and what your rights are so that you can know how to hold people to those boundaries. So here's the great news, the little PS there that says assertiveness can be learnt and cultivated. And at its essence, this is what a self-leadership journey should be all about. Going on the discovery of how to be assertive is going to be the underlying thread of the kind of the scale that you can judge on how well you're, as a person, as a well-formed person, how successful you're being at putting yourself together. Excuse me. So here are some of the characteristics of assertive people. And please write down the characteristics that you can identify with. Assertive people and leaders, they have an affinity for openness. They don't like secrets. They don't need secrets. They are all about openness. They see the importance of having difficult conversations. That is about openness. They're active listeners. They see that hearing what people have to say is an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to grow. They have boundaries. Take a look at the research of Dr. Brené Brown. She's a vulnerability researcher. And all of her research, and it's extensive and it's based in science. She's all about analytics. All her research shows that the happiest people are the most boundaried people. And as I said, you cannot be boundaried without understanding what your boundaries are and what your rights are. So if you want to be happier, it's really important for you to understand what your rights are and how to be assertive. Assertive people are respectful and they are respected. They are secure and encouraging and confident and honest. They have integrity. They walk the talk. There is no do as I say, not what I do. They are active communicators, open to compromise, mentally healthy. They're inspiring and focused. They are collaborators. They are team orientated. They do not micromanage. They trust you to do the work that you need to do. They are transparent. They celebrate their teams. They maintain excellent relationships. Now, here's the important thing. If we go back to our seesaw, it is not that you are going to arrive at a moment when you are always here. It's important to understand that at different moments throughout your day and different moments throughout your life, you are going to be on the scale here or you're going to be on the scale here. Hard things show up. They're going to stress test you like COVID-19, and you're going to end up a little bit more on the scale either towards passivity or towards being aggressive when people are attacking you. Assertiveness is the goal. You won't always be there, and it may be difficult for you to maintain assertiveness all the time. But the goal is to be there as much of the time as possible. You're aspiring to it. So there were 3 leadership styles. They're the 3 main leadership styles. What's the half? What's the 0.5? That's passive aggressiveness. So I want you to take a look at what you wrote down about being the characteristic traits of the passive person, the characteristic traits that you identified with as an aggressive person. I want you to hold them in your consciousness for a second, both of them, and hear the definition that Jamie has for what passive aggressiveness is. Expressing your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs in an indirect way that violates the rights of others by undermining them. Often involves putting others down in a non-obvious way. For example, sarcastic humor. Now, there's a time when sarcastic humor is really fun and great, but when the sarcastic humor is at the expense of another person, in Australia we call that taking a dig. When you're doing that, when your humor is at the expense of somebody else, that is passive aggressiveness. I want to put a big warning out right now. Passive aggressiveness is highly prevalent in our industry. And oftentimes it is much more problematic than either just being a passive leader or being an aggressive leader. Passive aggressive people who their modus operandi is to be purely passive aggressive. So they will say one thing to your face and act a different way behind your back. They are the people that can create real challenging situations for you in your teams. They are the people that are the most toxic in your teams. So having said that, what I want to say is take a look at your list of passive characteristics and aggressive characteristics and take a look at where they overlap. Are there times when you are saying to somebody, I think you're awesome, and then going behind their back and telling everybody they're an asshole? Are you that person? And if you are that person, you will be that kind of a leader. And that is not going to be an environment where you're going to be able to lead people with trust and confidence. Now, understanding all of this about yourself is incredibly important when it comes to how you deal with situations in uncertain times like COVID-19. And that leads us to the second half of what we're going to talk about, which is leading in uncertain times. If you looked at what COVID-19 did to all of us, it exposed all of our vulnerabilities. It exposed our financial vulnerabilities. It exposed the quality of the people and the relationships we had around us and how vulnerable we were to that. It exposed our financial insecurities, our food insecurities, our shelter insecurities. It exposed all of our vulnerabilities, both as individuals, as teams, as families, as a nation, as a city, and as a world. And those people who had invested time and money in building their character, rather than or as well as building their financial wealth or their financial security, but the main focus building their character, if you were one of those people, you will have fared much better than anybody else, regardless of your financial situation in COVID-19. So again, if you were somebody who if you were somebody who had invested in building your character and COVID-19 hit, you were not rocked as hard as people who had not invested the time and effort into doing that. And here's why. Everything that we have just talked about with regards to leadership styles, doing hard things, facing adversity, challenging yourself, understanding whether you're a passive, aggressive, or assertive leader, doing all of those things. COVID-19 wasn't as dramatic for you as it was for everybody else. It was just another hard thing that you already had the skills to deal with. So For people who have gone on the journey of sitting in the discomfort of what it is to live a very full life and challenge themselves, were just faced with another hard thing. The people who hadn't invested in that were completely obliterated emotionally and mentally and financially by what happened with COVID-19 and went to one extreme or another of dysfunction. So when we talk about assertiveness, we are talking about being even. We are talking about being open, and we are talking about looking at a situation the way that it is presented to us. We are not talking about being aggressive, which is blaming and abusing other people, which is one form of dysfunction. We're also not talking about ignoring their situation and just letting others deal with it and someone will come save me. That's another form of dysfunction. We are talking about looking at what's happening and saying, how do I keep me safe? How do I keep my team safe? How do I keep my business safe? What do I have control of? What don't I have control of? How do I get the best data possible? How do I remove the toxicity from this situation as quickly as possible? And how do I act like a champion? How do I be assertive? How do I understand what my rights are? How do I understand what my boundaries are? How do I hold people to account to make sure that they do not overstep my boundaries? How do I make sure that I am holding other people to account so that they do not abuse my rights? And the way that you do that is by making sure that you are assertive in all of this. By making sure that you are going on the journey of making yourself accountable for the responsibility of your own success and your own safety. Now, when you can lead in that way, you can lead assertively. When a crisis like this happens, the people around you immediately feel that they've got this because you've got them. You demonstrate to people that we're just going to deal with this the same way that we've dealt with every other challenge. We have a strategy in place for dealing with hard shit. This is not unprecedented. This is just a different version of hard. And it presents us with the opportunity that every other hard thing presents us with. What am I going to learn from this? What am I going to get freedom from? What fear am I going to get freedom from with this? How is this going to bring us closer together? How can we remove any little teetering sprinkles of dysfunction that we didn't know that we had? You got to let people have their freak out. You got to let people go and be passive and hide in the corner and not want to confront it. You got to let people get angry and do all that kind of stuff. That's not the part of it that defines people. It's how quickly they come back to the center of that seesaw. Do people feel panicked when something new shows up? Fuck yes. Every single time a new fear shows up for me, I have a moment of, ugh. But then the experience kicks in and says, hey, lady, this feeling is not new. You've been here before, you've done this, let's go. And what you learn to do is not go down the rabbit hole. And this is what's important in times of crisis, times of uncertainty. How quickly can you bring your team back to center with a new strategy? How quickly can you bring yourself back to center with a new strategy? Doing the same thing you've always done. But at the core of that, at the very deep core of that, is building culture. And you build culture by understanding what your team values are, by understanding what your choices are, what your mission and purpose is. All of these things going into the deep depths of the roots of what your business is about, not just defining them on a piece of paper, but living them, living those things These stress tests of these uncertain times are going to be the defining thing that shows you whether you are built on a concrete slab with deep, deep roots that are unshakable. And that concrete slab is your culture. How much trust does your team have in you? How much trust do you have in your team? That when shit goes south really, really quickly and that foundation that you built is rocked by this massive dragon that's shown up and just burnt the whole house down, is your foundation still standing? Or was it built on a house of cards and you were just deluding yourself that people trusted you, that you weren't a leader that people followed, you weren't a leader that people invested in? The moment hard stuff turns up, they're scattering. And we're going to talk about the idea of when difficult situations show up, the unintended consequences of COVID-19. We're going to talk about how that stress tests your leadership in a second. So how do you transition leadership styles from dysfunctional to high functioning? And essentially what that is how do you go from being a passive leader to being, or a passive or aggressive leader, to being an assertive leader? Now, thinking that because something like COVID-19 shows up, you're going to automatically be this astronomical leader that knows exactly what to do is such utter horseshit that I have heard a number of people say throughout this online about how this is the thing that's going to make leaders. It's not the thing that's going to make leaders. What makes leaders is the work that you've put in before the catastrophes happen. It's the work that you've put in to lead yourself. COVID-19 is not going to make leaders. It is going to identify who has done the work. It is the thing that identified who were the quality leaders that had their leadership built on a concrete slab. And it's going to reveal the leaders who had built their leadership on a house of cards. So transitioning from being a passive aggressive or passive aggressive leader has to happen before these catastrophes show up. And this is where I go back to leadership is a lifelong journey. Leadership is something that you, along the way, you pick up a new tool every single day. Oh, I learned how to be just a little bit more open to other people's ideas today. Oh, I listened to this podcast and this person demonstrated to me how to admit that they were wrong. That's a really great tool. I'm going to practice that. Oh, I watched this person in a conversation on the bus disagree with someone in a really respectful way. Oh, that's a really great tool to put in my leadership toolkit. Leadership is a lifelong journey. And so this is a moment to take a look around you and identify the people who led, who really, really led. And Kira and I are going to talk about this in the discussion in the third hour, because Kira and Baratza led in a way that was inspiring to me. And we talked constantly throughout the last couple of months and discussed our leadership strategies. We were discussing and sharing stories about the things that people were saying to us and the things we were observing. And I just implore you, if you are looking for good people to learn from and good businesses to model the way that you do business from, I'm not saying this because Baratza is a sponsor of this workshop. Baratza is a sponsor of this workshop because they are a great leader. So go and follow Baratza. Look at what they're doing and why they do it. Look at the intention behind their marketing. Shout out to Joyce. I know that you're watching. She's incredible at being able to deliver the intention behind what the leadership team sets as the course and delivering that intention through their marketing. Good leaders question things. Assertive leaders are not scared to see the bullshit behind the branding. They're not scared to see the bullshit behind what somebody's saying. They're open to seeing what their flaws are, and they never stop learning. They are excited about uncovering where the facade is. And in times of uncertainty, one of the things that is going to weigh you down, one of the things that's going to stop you from being able to come back to center as quickly as possible is believing the bullshit. Believing that when somebody is telling you everything's going to be okay, believing that it's okay to give them responsibility for that. Your responsibility as a self-leader and as a leader in a team or of a team is to show up and take responsibility for what being okay means for you. And making sure that you are not contributing to the dysfunction in a team as a self-leader. If you're not the person who's leading that team, being in a team, you still have a leadership role. Leading yourself in amongst a team requires you to say, how am I not contributing to the dysfunction of this team? Am I contributing by being dramatic or being passive or being aggressive? Any of these things. If I'm being passive and not speaking up, I'm contributing to the dysfunction of this team. If I'm being aggressive, I'm contributing to the dysfunction of this team and I'm not leading with integrity. Even if you're not the leader of a team, you are still a leader in a team. And it's important to understand how you contribute to the dysfunction of that. Leadership characteristics that separate effective leaders in times of crisis and uncertainty. Well, I would say take a look at Instagram. And this is a really great exercise. And I want you to look at the people that you follow on Instagram or any social media, or the videos that you watch on YouTube, or any of the content that you consume. You could also do this with the people who you call and the conversations that you have. And take a look at how you instinctively felt about the quality that that person brought to your life before COVID-19 and how you assess that now. One thing that's an example of this is take a look at the people that you thought were celebrities and important in the world before this, and what value do they add to your life now? Excuse me. And you'll start to get a very clear understanding of the characteristics that different people hold that are valuable to you. So one thing that you will notice is how good someone looks in a photo and the quality of the photos that they're posting on Instagram makes you feel whatever you feel for about 0.3 of a second. But that person's ability to make you feel anything beyond that, did that serve you in this time of crisis? Was it valuable to you in this time of crisis? What characteristics does this person bring to your life that were important at the time of a crisis when you felt uncertain? Compare that to somebody who was saying to you, go and empower yourself with the information that you need to understand what the situation looks like. Go and do the research to empower yourself with an understanding of what COVID-19 is, Don't believe anything that anybody else is telling you until you know the facts for yourself. So, excuse me. There were some people that were turning around and saying, I'm just going to believe what other people are telling me. They've all got the right information. Or what I'm going to do is I'm just going to peace out. I don't want to think about any of this. It's too stressful. And then on the other side of that, there were the people that were yelling and shouting at people that the government's trying to take your rights and COVID-19 is a hoax and it's all about 5G and it's all about this hyper conspiracy theory side of things. So again, on one side, we've got the passive aspect of it where people are checking out and letting everybody else take care of it for them. They're not confronting any of it. And then on the other side, we've got people yelling and shouting that stop being a puppet and stop being a sheeple and stop being this and stop being that. You're a fool and et cetera, et cetera. There's both of those extremes. And then in the center, there were people who were being assertive. They were empowering themselves with information. They were sharing information that they found valuable and resources that they found valuable. They were taking time out when they needed to take care of their own mental health. They were listening to both sides of the news, the media, to try and get an understanding for themselves where the spectrum was and how much they could believe the information. That's openness. That's a willingness to hear all the arguments and all the information that's out there without overwhelming yourself. They were also being transparent and vulnerable, sharing with the people around them that they could trust. Vulnerability is not about you telling everybody everything. Vulnerability is about sharing your vulnerabilities, the things that bring you fear, with people that you can trust to take care of you in that space. Vulnerability is not about you being vulnerable with people who are passive aggressive that will take that information and make you feel really great and thank you for sharing it with me, and then go and tell your team, hey, did you know that this person is actually trans? That's not who you should be sharing your vulnerabilities with. Manipulative people, people who are aggressive, people who are passive aggressive, that you're not able to share your truths with and know that you can trust them, they're not the people to share them with. Go and find the people who you know will hold that safe space for you and not judge you. And you will be considered exceptionally lucky if you have just a tiny handful of those people. That's all you need. So if you were a person, and what I'm saying is that your goal is to find a place where your journey in leading yourself and leading a team at the beginning, and the beginning means like the first 10 years, feels like you're being tossed around in a dryer. It feels like you're trying to figure out where the edges are and where the boundaries are and where up is and where down is. It feels like you're constantly second guessing yourself. But eventually, as you get more experienced and you've picked up more tools along the way, those tools are the characteristics that you're trying to grow heart and mind muscles in. And you take those characteristics and somehow you stop tumbling in that dryer a little bit more. You find where the edges are, you're able to hold yourself steady, and you start to find flow when somebody turns that tumbling dryer on. And the tumultuous times, the very up and down times, you are able to ride through the center of it. Ellen gives people this advice, and she says, don't ride the highs and don't ride the lows. Just stay even. And that's really great advice, because if you're not riding the highs, I'm not saying don't celebrate them, but don't ride them. Don't ride the lows. They're going to happen. equanimity. Let them come, let them pass. Don't influence them. They're going to show up for all of you. All it means is that this low thing that's showing up, this hard thing that's showing up, is an opportunity for you to expose another fear. And once you've exposed that fear, you are presented with the best opportunity that you have been offered ever in your life to get access to it, to heal it, to let go of it, and to grow from it. Now, when you can demonstrate that characteristic, when you can show people around you who you are leading, that that's a valuable trait, that's where trust lies. Great leaders don't shy away from challenge. They don't hide how they're dealing with challenge. Great leaders will let you see them struggle with something. They will show you how they are dealing with it. They will make sure that they build a team around them that's trusting enough and trustworthy enough that they can expose their vulnerabilities to that person, to that team. And so that when you witness, or when they witness you going through a challenge, they don't take it as an opportunity to undercut you. They don't take it as an opportunity to better themselves. They take it as an opportunity to support you and to elevate you. And the question that they ask is, how can I help? They are there with support. And that's when the idea of self-leadership in a team is so important. And when you're leading that team, you want to cultivate self-leadership, because self-leaders understand that, hey, my leader is struggling right now. How do I show up for them? How do I lead myself in my journey? But how do I lead as an active member, as a team that's conspiring to the success of everything that we're going to try and achieve? They're the characteristics that I witnessed in great leaders as this pandemic unfolded, or the beginning of this pandemic unfolded in the last couple of months. Confronting the unintended consequences of a crisis and the difficult questions that result. All right, we're going to spend a minute here. This brings us to the nuts and bolts of so many of the questions that came through on the in the questionnaire. So we received hundreds of questions for this workshop. And I want to take a second to thank you for showing up, because as well as Mapper Forward putting this on and our sponsors contributing the way that they did, and me and my team doing what we're doing and me presenting this, none of this means anything if you don't show up to want to be better leaders. Our goal here is not to create the best leaders for right now. We're very intentional in understanding that the work that we're doing today with you and the work that we're doing over the last few years in Mapper Forward and into the next few years is not about creating the best leaders right now. We're playing the long game. Our job is to empower you, as I said at the top of this, to have the courage to go on the beginnings of this very difficult but incredibly rewarding journey. And we're looking to foster and cultivate leaders of the future. And my deep desire as a human is to inspire you to live the richest life possible. The questions that have come through have been really interesting. They have been telling in a way that shows us that we are doing such a terrible job in our industry of creating any semblance of safety. We're doing a terrible job as an industry of creating any semblance of certainty amongst uncertainty. What this has done, and the number one unintended consequence of COVID-19 for our industry, is that it broke us. In one weekend, the Ides of March 2020, around the world, whether people realized it or not, the hospitality industry stopped and will never be the same. And I don't mind saying I don't think that that's a bad thing. I use the analogy on day one in my kickoff where I use the analogy of a dragon. I'm going to use it again and just to help you understand how I'm viewing what's happened and where we're at right now with COVID-19 in the coffee industry. So think of it this way. People were telling you that there's a dragon coming. People who could see it earlier than other people were saying, hey, look, off in the distance, there's a dragon. And I think we need to get ready for this dragon. And you know, the hustle and bustle of one version of dragons don't exist, this person's crazy, or is that really a dragon? Or should I take this seriously? How do you even prepare for a dragon? One version or another of that. But the dragon comes closer and closer and closer and closer. And this is applicable to everything, not just COVID-19, but all the uncertain crises that happen. The dragon kept getting closer. And as the dragon kept getting closer, a few more people started shifting their perspectives from, do we need to prepare for this? Is this really serious? To maybe we should start paying attention. There were a couple of people in amongst that were saying, showing up to the person who was saying, hey, there's a dragon coming. And they were saying, hey, listen, there's a dragon coming. Do you need anything? This is how we've prepared. So the people who could see the dragon coming, they were the assertive leaders. They were the leaders who had gone through the hard shit before. But the other people were like, oh, if there's a dragon coming, I don't want to know about it. I wouldn't know how to deal with it. Or on the other side, no, the dragon's a load of shit. This person's lying to you. They don't know what they're talking about, etc., etc. You know where you were on that spectrum. But as the dragon got closer and closer and closer, people, based on their life experience, either went into shock as the dragon landed, they went into shock and trauma, or they kept centered, watched what this dragon was doing, and took appropriate action. Other people saw that the dragon was there, went into shock and trauma and ran away. Didn't want to see it. So if we use our seesaw as the analogy there, the people who ran away, they're the passive people. The people who stood there in shock and trauma will typically be the kind of people who tend towards the aggressive phase, because they could go into passive, but they will more than likely go into aggressive based on a lot of the research, because once they come out of that, they will start blaming other people. They will start asking, like, this didn't really happen. They will just start getting aggressive, yelling at people, shouting at people, blaming people, trying to protect themselves by hurting other people and taking from other people, abusing people's rights. They're the people who bought up all the toilet paper. They're the people who made sure you didn't have enough and they had too much. The people who were the assertive ones were the people who were standing there and saying, there's a dragon coming, there's a dragon coming. Oh, it's closer, it's closer. I need to prepare. I need enough for what I need. I need to make sure my people are taken care of. And this is how we need to do that. They were making the calls, trying to figure out what the seriousness of the situation was. And they were assessing the whole way. Who were the resources that could be trusted and who weren't? The dragon showed up, and while people were either running away or stuck in the trauma of looking up at this dragon, they could see that the dragon was burning down the house. And they had planned in accordance for the probability that if a dragon's going to show up, they might burn down that house. And if they burn down that house, I've got to get everything that I need out of that house, or I need to prepare for making sure that if that house burns down, I have a backup plan that's going to work. Now, that's best case scenario. And pretty much nobody I know was the perfect example of that assertive leader, that person who was saying that the dragon's coming. We were all a version of all three of those scenarios. And we were all different levels of that version at different times. Now, the unintended consequence of that is what happened afterwards. So if we extrapolate that analogy out into how that played out with cafe owners and roastery owners and employees and the government and the supply chain and all of that, here's what that looks like. The Ides of March happens, and I'm getting calls from people who work in the industry saying, the owner, my leader, the owner of the business I work for, is telling me that we shouldn't be taking this seriously and that I'm not allowed to put a face mask on, I'm not allowed to wear gloves, and we're busier than we've ever been. And so we're not going to do any kind of curbside pickup or anything like that. They're just telling us it's business as usual, and because business is booming, even though we're getting told to shut down, they want to take advantage of this. And then on the other side, you were hearing people say that there are people that know what's going on and they are going to, so in the first scenario, they didn't want to believe any of it was happening. It's not true. It's not a big deal, but business is booming. We're going to take advantage of it. On the other side, you've got people saying, we know this is happening. We're probably not going to survive this. So let's take advantage of it. And whatever happens, happens. If people get sick, they get sick. Those two extremes are again on the passive and the assertive, passive and aggressive spectrum. And what happened from that was that people got angry, and they got angry loud in a passive way. That's that passive aggressive thing. So they were sending me emails, sending me private messages saying, my boss is an asshole. I'm really scared. I don't know what to do. And I wonder if they understand what they're doing. I think they know what they're doing, or I think they're being ignorant. One of those two things. What that led was, I would say to them, have you told your boss how you feel? You would get one answer or another. Yes, they're telling me that I'm causing drama, that I'm sensationalizing it. So there's a leader that's not listening to their team because they don't want to buy into it. They're standing there, they've seen the dragon and they've run away, or because they see the dragon, they subconsciously know what's coming and they want to make the best for themselves. Fuck everybody else. If anyone gets sick, that's fine. Fast forward to the unemployment showing up, the unemployment money showing up, and people having to make the choice of whether to furlough their staff. So, in Australia, that word doesn't exist, and in a lot of other countries that doesn't exist. So furloughing is having to let go of your people with the chance that you might hire them back, or they had to lay off their people permanently. This was an opportunity in the industry where people saw the opportunity to close and knew they were never going to open up again. And we'll talk in a second about why that's real and why that's important. But people furloughed their staff, they laid off their staff, and their staff applied for unemployment. And what we saw was a reckoning that is at the height of the unintended consequences of this pandemic for our industry that has brought the industry to its knees and has brought business owners to their knees. When people are getting paid double on unemployment, what they earn in their wage, we have a serious problem. Because then when those businesses who were forced to shut down are being offered relief money. Here in America, it's called Payment Protection Program, PPP. In Australia, it's a relief fund. In other countries, there are other versions of that. But when the businesses are being offered money to bring staff back to work, and those loans that they're being offered will be forgiven provided that the money will be spent on paying wages. What is the motivation for those people to go back to work when they're going to earn more on unemployment? So then I start hearing from the other side of things. I start hearing from the employers. Very colorful versions of baristas and roasters in the coffee industry are lazy, unappreciative humans. They don't appreciate that they've got a job. They should get back to work. They don't want to work. And lots of expletives in there. Now, with the podcast that I have, our job is to observe this and to discuss it and to unpack it. And being the intentional leader that I am, it's not to judge either side. I'm not here to say either side is right or wrong. It's for us to bring you to a clear understanding that a lot of this is complex and nuanced. So let's unpack what the complex and nuance is. While this situation has uncovered that it is incredibly real for employees to have an amazingly strong, valid case for the fact that they earn double on unemployment than they do when they're working hard and getting paid their wages. The other side of this that this exposes is that most cafes operate at 3% net profit. If they're doing really, really well, they might be earning 6% net profit. So for those of you that don't understand what that means that once they've paid all of their bills for the year and they've looked at how much money they've earned, so they take how much money they've earned and they've paid all of the money that they owe, whatever they're left with, that's their net profit. And that's what they then have to pay tax on. Now at a cafe, you may be earning really great revenue. And you might look at this and say, this bottle of Elixir costs a cafe, let's say it costs them $5 to buy this bottle of Elixir, and they sell it for $3. Or they sell it for $3 more, right? And they're making a whole $3 on that bottle of Elixir. That's amazing. They're really great profits. But that's just considering the cost of goods. That's considering what it costs the cafe to just buy this bottle of Elixir. Those are made up numbers, by the way. What we're not looking at there is what's called the fixed costs. So what are the costs that it takes to run the business, whether you sell one bottle of Elixir or no bottles of Elixir? That's the rent, that's the insurance, that's the wages, that's the admin staff, that's the property taxes if you own the building that you're operating out of. That's the business taxes that you have to pay every year. It's all of it. When you look at those fixed costs, they are what bring a business to its knees. And so when you're operating at 100% capacity, a full cafe, or as a roaster, you have your roastery is running at full capacity because you have a great wholesale program. But when the cafe is told that it can now only operate at 20% capacity, what then happens is that they have to find a way to sell so much more at 20% capacity to make up for the 80% that is gone, just so that they can break even. If they were looking at 3% net profit before, what are they looking at now? So think of it in the sense that while on one side we've got people who are earning double what they were earning before, now that they're on unemployment, and we've got employers who are brought to their knees, and at 3% net profit, they're paying shit wages. They think it's great wages, but the reality of it is they couldn't live on it. But because everybody else is paying that, then it's okay to pay that. Our employees have been brought to our knees, and our business owners have been brought to their knees. What's the thing that all of that has in common? And it's that we're not having open discussions, meeting at the middle, to have the discussions to sort this out. And COVID-19 has a very real unintended consequence in that it has brought us all to these discussions. The veil has been lifted, and we are realizing Momofuku has had to close most of its restaurants. They announced yesterday. It is exposing a lot of information about the reality of how by a thread most businesses were operating from no fault of their own, other than this is just how things are run. It should not be accepted to operate in an industry where the best that you're hoping for is 3% net profit. Because what happens with that is something like this happens and breaks you like a twig. The dragon showed up, breathed fire on your house and knocked it down all before you had the foresight, the capacity to look at that and say, oh, fuck, it's gone. So while you're still up there looking at the dragon, everything else is breaking around you and falling around you. And so we are at an impasse. We either take a look at this grey and the complexity of it that we've been avoiding, we've been really passive about for decades. This is not new. This is decades. We've been passive about this. We either take the time to look at it and confront it and have very real, honest conversations about it, or we're going to go away. We're not going to be able to survive as an industry. It is a driving force behind why this 3-day series has been called A New Coffee Industry. And I hope that this is the first of an annual event that continues to happen as we build what is the new coffee industry. The barrier to entry for our industry has been extremely low for far too long. And what we need is for each of us to take the very real, very hard decision to raise the barrier to entry for ourselves and for our businesses. So just because other people are paying shit wages, it doesn't mean that we have to pay shit wages. Just because other people are welcoming inexperienced people in, it doesn't mean we have to do that. Just because other people are happy to have a business that's built on 3% net profit. It doesn't mean that we have to. We have to take the assertive approach of understanding where our boundaries are, what our rights are, what we define as success, what our values are. We have to lead with the intention of elevating the barrier to entry for ourselves. That is what we are charged with moving forward after these 3 days. The strategies for leading with confidence in uncertain times. And this is where I want to invite you to a new thing that's come out of these 3 days, which is Ann Cooper is doing this also. So if you're a roaster, I want to make sure that you know that this is happening for all you roasters out there as well. From the feedback that we got, we've decided, we being Map It Forward, that we are creating online group coaching sessions that are affordable for people. They'll be limited to 10 people per group. And the group will be open to people who are interested in learning to lead yourself. So if you've never done hard stuff, this will be a great supportive group for you to learn the skills in doing that. Learning how to lead a team. People who are already leading a team, but it's not their business that they're leading, and a group for people who are business owners and leading a team. So if you're interested in being a part of that, it will be we will meet monthly. We will want you to commit to 3 months, just so that you can start to see the long-term benefits that you're going to get out of that. And you can get that information at mapitforward.org/coaching. I will be your coach for the leadership side of this. As I said, we've also set a similar thing up for roasting with Anne, and you can go and check that out too. So I hope that you have found this informative. I'm humbled and honored to share all of this information with you. And I'm so excited about the next session with Kira Kennedy and the questions that we're about to tackle and the knowledge that you're about to learn from my dear friend. So we'll be back shortly, and stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone, to Leadership, leading yourself and others in uncertain times. I hope you enjoyed the first part of the presentation. We're about to enter my favorite part of this presentation, and I'm absolutely honored to introduce my guest. She's a dear friend of mine, and I want to welcome Kira Kennedy, the CEO of Baratza, to the discussion. Hello, my friend.
Hello, Lee, and all that are listening. Congratulations on a first incredible 2 hours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. The next hour of discussion is going to be similar to what our usual conversations are, where you're walking through the forest where you are, and I'm walking in the park where I am, and we're just having a great long conversation, which usually goes for much longer than what this will go for. But it will be exactly the same stuff that we're going to talk about today. And one of the great honors of having gone through the kind of ride that I decided to consciously take myself on in self-leadership was that you get to a point where you are hyper aware of the quality of people that you allow into your life and the influence that they're going to have on you and the way that you think and the way that you feel and the way that you do. And the greatest part about this is that I get to be friends with people like you. And, you know, you get to a point where you're like, what is success? You know, we talk about things like that, and we talk about what are my life currencies and what is important. And at a moment like COVID-19, really, you know, we've talked so much about how we're observing other people and how we're observing ourselves as leaders and our teams, et cetera, et cetera. How can we show up the best for other people? But one way that I know I've shown up for myself happened before, well ahead of this happening. It was about understanding how to bring great quality people into my life. And I think that's one of the greatest leadership tools that you can do for yourself, right? Like, have good people around you.
Thoughtful, thought-provoking, constantly learning, great people.
That would be you. In my life, that definitely is, you know, it's that thing where I can pick up the phone and tell you what I'm scared of, and you can tell me what you're scared of. You can tell me what you're finding challenging. I can tell you what I'm finding challenging. We can agree and we can disagree, and we can talk things out. And we do. We disagree on lots. We agree on lots. And we still love. It's like this exploration of each other's minds. And now I get to share that with everybody through this, with the challenges that they're experiencing through COVID-19. And so one of the things that I keep getting asked by people is, how do you lead people through something like this? Now, I've watched what you've done with Baratza. I've watched how Baratza has led in the industry. And I was wondering if we could start in this by kind of looking at how Baratza has adapted in such uncertain times and how you as a CEO have approached that very difficult task.
Sure. Well, I have to start by saying that I was lucky enough to visit Lee in San Diego in February, and Lee was talking to me about COVID-19 and saying, the dragon is coming, the dragon is coming. And I have to say, I was probably one of those a bit passive leaders that didn't really want to believe that the dragon was coming. And I was actually in San Diego for a leadership conference, so I had 3 days to think about something I call reading the world, which is being able to listen to all kinds of people and all kinds of things that are being talked about and determine what's going to be important and what's not going to be important. And it's one thing I did come back from my conversation with Lee is I said, oh my gosh, this could affect our manufacturing. Because we manufacture in Taiwan, which I wasn't thinking that COVID-19 would be a real big deal in Taiwan, but we get a few parts from China. And I went, maybe we should be looking into that. And actually, it turned out to be a great thing because our manufacturing started looking into all the different parts that we get from outside of Taiwan, which are burrs and a lot of our electronics come from different areas around the world. And so the beginning of the conversation of what's going to happen to our supply line was really important. So Lee, first of all thank you for that.
You're welcome.
But I really didn't think that much until probably everybody else started thinking about it in March is, oh my gosh, I think this is going to have an impact on Baratza. And we didn't know what the impact was really going to be.
Yeah.
Although we did start realizing that it was probably going to have a big impact on some of our very important resellers, the roasters and cafes, as we started realizing they were going to be closing, and they were going to be dealing with a very difficult situation. And we also started seeing, and this is going to be different than a lot of people who are listening, we actually started seeing our business get very busy. Demand for coffee grinders skyrocketed in March, and as people started working from home, and people who had been going and having their coffee at a wonderful cafe and enjoying the community of the cafe, all of a sudden were stuck at home. They still wanted to have a great cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And so they were looking at their roasters and their cafes saying, wow, can I still make a great cup of coffee? And in that, I need a grinder and I need something to brew my coffee in, and I need your wonderful coffee. And so all of a sudden we saw a huge increase in demand. And we first started seeing it from our large resellers, a lot of which sell on Amazon or on the internet. And then we started getting people calling saying, hey, can I drop ship grinders? My cafe is closed, but I want to sell coffee on my websites, and I'd really like to sell coffee equipment. But it'd be best if I drop ship the grinders. And so we've always had drop ship available, but we made a decision as we saw this demand increase that we were going to hold over a certain number of our grinders for drop shipping and for our smaller customers, because the large customers were putting in orders that would completely eat up all of our inventory if we let it. So we made a decision to hold at least 35% of the grinders we have for our small dropship customers to ensure that when they ordered, they could get some. And it sounds like a really easy thing to do.
Oh, no.
But what was hard for us is that we haven't automated our dropship program. And so we actually put each one of those orders in by hand, ship it by hand, and then charge it by hand. And this meant it wasn't so bad when you got 10 drop ships a day or 5 drop ships a day, but all of a sudden when you're getting 80 to 100 drop ships a day,
that's another employee.
It is. And we weren't hiring new employees because most of our employees were working from home. And so how were we going to train them? How were we going to get them up and going? All of that. So anyway, it's turned out to be an incredible learning experience for us.
I can imagine.
And so I guess what I would say for anybody, whether it's a good experience, and some people can say, wow, growth is a great experience. And slow growth, slow, constant growth.
That's the goal, really, right?
Great experience.
It's so nice.
But when you double your sales or triple your sales in a 1-month period of time, that is a whole different set of problems. And I always say we're now driving so fast it feels like the car is shaking, and everything is about ready to explode.
It's a different fear, isn't it?
It is a different fear. And you worry about your employees all of a sudden are having to adapt, having to be very flexible, take on new things that they haven't done before, and work from home. So we had 14 people in our office, and now we have maybe 3 at the office at any time, which are doing our shipping and our repairing, and everybody else is working from home when they've never done that before. And we've never done that before. So it's been a really interesting experience in how do you hold, like you were talking about, how do you hold culture? How do you take care of the emotions that everybody in the company is having, because they're having the same fear, concern, anxiety, what's going to happen, change. So all that is happening for them as people, and all that is happening within the business. And so we're dealing with some of the same things. Not all the same things. And I guess I feel like we've been very lucky.
I was talking in the presentation about self-leadership, and in times of uncertainty, which is what you're experiencing now, it's uncertain from a different perspective than what my other people are experiencing the uncertainty. Your uncertainty is, are my people going to be able to show up the way that I need them to show up? And am I showing up for them the way that they need me to show up as a business and as the CEO of the company? And how did you as a leader inspire, or did you inspire deliberately? I think I know the answer to this, but I'd love to hear you talk about it. How do you choose the people that can show up for the uncertainty? Do you do that at hiring? Do you cultivate it once they've gotten in there? Do you know what I mean?
Well, probably we've been around for 20 years, and we definitely have had some core values of the company that have been there for all 20 years. But I would say that in the last 3 years, we have really focused a lot on what's our vision, what's our mission, what are our core values, and how do we build teams and make decisions around that. Mm-hmm. And when you were talking about being your personal leader, and determining what you call it, like currencies are, I think that for me, that's called, what are your cares? What are your concerns? What's really important to you? Mm-hmm. And one of the things that for me is, how do you care and take care of the concerns of all your stakeholders? And stakeholders, I've always hated that word, but I haven't figured out a better word.
I know what you mean.
but so stakeholder for me would be your consumers, your employees, your wholesaler resellers, your importers, your manufacturer, the suppliers that supply your manufacturer, your partners. Because to run a business, whether it's tiny or huge, it really requires a lot of different stakeholders. Mm-hmm. And in order to be able to juggle the cares of all of them, it means that first of all, you want to take care of all of them.
Right.
And that you've really
thought intentionality, right?
Right. Oh, I love that word. Yes. And we have been practicing that now for about 3 years, where we put together a management team, and our management team is mainly made up of our marketing department, our operations department, which we would call inside sales, service, support, mm-hmm. and our product development and manufacturing. And so how do you take care of all those together and the people they represent? And so when we're making a decision based on, we want to take care of all of our resellers. That doesn't mean the big ones. It means actually for Baratza, it means the cafes and the roasters and the baristas who have helped make us who we are, who have recommended Encore grinders to people that wander in and say, what grinder should I buy?
Mm.
And so I think that ability to be able to say, what's the mission behind or the vision behind the company? And for us, our vision has always been to make everyone we touch feel cared for. Now, I'm not going to say we do that all the time. And I'm sure people that are listening can smile and say, oh, yeah, I have some stories of when didn't exactly make me feel cared for. But actually, it is at the basis of what we talk about at our managers' meetings, our all hands meetings. It's the basis of how we make our decisions, and it's hanging on our wall. Not that hanging on your wall means you do it, but it is definitely something that I would say you could walk up to almost anybody that works at Baratza and they would say, oh, yeah, we try to take care.
Yeah.
And what does take care mean? It doesn't mean you give everything away for free, because the company has to continue to be able to support, say, 1 million grinders that are out there. It needs to continue to support the employees that work for us and our manufacturer. And so it's really about how do we weigh all the different things that are going to be important so that we can continue to be a company that's out there supporting our products, our employees, our manufacturer, our wholesalers, and all of them are taken care of in that.
What a great answer.
To finish that, we started building teams. We had our managers meetings. We have a manager meeting every week. We had an all hands meeting, which we had it once a month, and we've moved it to, since this crisis and everybody is all over the place at home, we moved it to once a week.
Yeah.
And it's important for us to, we meet over Zoom. And we have discussions, we watch videos, we talk about the history of Baratza, we talk about the good things that are happening, the comments that are coming out, the exciting things that Baratza is doing, what our customers are doing. And so that people feel part of a community and they feel part of a team. And they all understand what we're trying to accomplish as they're working at home and seeing, our support emails have just gone through the roof. And what we're finding is there's a lot of people who are buying grinders for the first time. They've never made coffee before. And so the grinder arrives. They don't know what a hopper is, what a bin is, how to take the hopper off,
what's that little thing that is that what you
the gas.
Don't you clean babies' bottles with these?
So anyway, it's been...
I love my Baratza grinder. Thank you again for sending me one. It's just been a lifesaver through this, because I never made coffee at home. I drank Elixir, or I would enjoy going out for a coffee. And then this happened and I sent you a text and said, you know what, I think I'm going to have to start actually making my own coffee. I've titled little so-and-so, but yeah, it's been a lifesaver, so thank you.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're welcome. And you had a lot of company out there, and I'm sure, like I said, a lot of people who have never made coffee before have decided that now is the time that they need to put together something to make coffee at home.
Yeah.
And so you'd think, oh, the sales went up and nothing else would go up, but actually everything has gone up. And so we are struggling to take care, answer emails, answer phone calls, get orders out. And it's been a whirlwind of activity.
I keep using this word stress test. I know in our walk and talks, I've used it. The Constitution has been stress tested. Civil liberties are being stress tested. Baratza has been stress tested for a different way than other companies have been stress tested, but you've still been, your systems are being stress tested right now. People's capacity to I guess, live their lives in a comfortable or, uncomfortable way is being stress tested. People's capacity for pain thresholds and all of that kind of stuff, everything is being stress tested right now. What do you think are the qualities of a leader that helps them face stress tests? I hate this word just because it's so ambiguous, but better than others.
Well, I think when you talked about being a personal or leading yourself, I think is what the term you use. I call it doing the inside job. And
I love that.
It's really about looking at yourself and looking at your moods, your emotions, the stories, the old historic stories that lead you to react certain ways, and determining choosing if you want to live in those kinds of moods and those kinds of stories that can limit you, and then to look at what your life, what the future you would like to have that's different than what you have now. And it doesn't mean you don't accept who you are and what you are, but to begin to go, oh, if I were changing something, and I love your current life currencies, flow, growth, purpose, meaningfulness, something that makes me feel like there's a reason to get out of bed in the morning, and
a compass, right?
Yes, make a difference in the world, help myself thrive, help the people I touch thrive, help Baratza thrive, and help the community thrive. And how that is so much an important meaning for me. And then Kyle and I have really felt the same way about Baratza, is how do we have a company that isn't based on how much money you make? It's really based on how do we build lives for ourselves, as well as our employees, as well as everyone we touch, that makes them feel like they can go out
and thrive,
touch other people. And that it's kind of that pass it along. How do we be in a mood of possibility, of hope, of care, of creativity, of learning, and
their perspectives, as you say that, I think those are perspectives of empowerment as opposed to a perspective of victimhood. So you could, the polar opposite, God, this really does feel like a walk and talk. It's, excuse me, it's one of those things whereby you look at that and say, well, I can choose to look at this situation and say, poor me, or I can choose to look at this situation and think, all right, I've got to get creative right now in problem solving. I've got to get, how can I be of service to myself and to others right now, rather than just sitting in the mess of what this moment has created, whether it be COVID-19 or not. As I was saying, like, when I look at people who have done hard stuff, COVID is just another hard stuff.
Yeah, that's a hard one. I think everybody has to go through COVID-19 and the hard stuff the way they go through the hard stuff, feeling those emotions of anxiety and fear and oh shit, the dragon just burned down my house.
Yeah.
And you know, I've been studying emotions for the last year, actually, and we all want to say, I don't want the negative emotions in my life. I just want to smash those down, and I don't want anxiety or sadness or grief or anger or resentment or blame or all those emotions. I don't want those. I'm going to go to happiness.
We all know what trap that is, making that decision, right?
Yes. But what's really interesting is to look at why you're feeling those feelings and to accept that we all are going to feel some sadness that our worlds are changing.
Yep.
We don't like change. And we don't know what the change is going to be. And so how do you move from this sadness or this anxiety to an acceptance of, oh, crud, there isn't much I can do about this. The world is changing and I'm not going to be able to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
And I now have to look at why I'm feeling this fear and sadness. And I need then to begin to look at what's the next, what would be next for me. And I've been there. I don't want to say that COVID-19 has not caused a lot of anxiety and sadness as I look around and see the world around me changing and the fear and the loss that so many people are feeling. And to kind of accept that we are where we are and what can I do? What are the possibilities of what I could do to help myself feel good, help my family feel good, help my business feel good, help the community? What are the little tiny things that allow me to get out of myself saying, this is what I lost, to beginning to say, I accept that I am where I am and move on. And we all do that at different rates. And I think you've talked about it's not, I'm an assertive leader now, and I never go back to being a passive leader, or I never go back to being
I haven't mastered
aggressive.
anything.
So I go to all of those.
Yeah.
Passive, I don't want anything to do with it. Aggressive is just watch me. I can power through this, and I don't care who is damaged by me doing it. And it usually doesn't work very well. And it's the same with emotions. So I can't remember what the question was originally, but
no, you landed perfectly on. I read some research recently, and a lot of, I can't remember who the author of the article was, but it's drawing this correlation between emotions evolved scientifically. They were looking at this. Our emotions are an important indicator of the experience. They're telling us a very real thing about something that is happening to us. So when you feel angry, and if you take the assertiveness training, you'll get to understand this to the people out there. But when you feel angry, that is a trigger to tell you that somebody has stepped over your rights. So you can correlate an emotion with an action or an external trigger or an internal trigger that gives you a key indicator to why you're experiencing that emotion. And these are important. The understanding, again, this is all about self-leadership, having that relationship with your emotions, not being scared of them, seeing them and being open to them, finding a way to deal with them. You know, if you're somebody who, I experienced a lot of anxiety throughout my life. And when I started to look at it and talk to people about it, I realized that it was because of unprocessed trauma and a lot of it. And so once I did start processing that trauma and going on the journey of taking responsibility for myself and taking responsibility for my actions, et cetera, I realized that I could sit in this anxiety forever. Not that, look, going through hard stuff, for anyone who may have misinterpreted that, what I said about, COVID-19 is just another hard stuff. I'm not minimizing it. What I'm saying is that when hard stuff shows up for anybody, there is a process that they themselves go through. And for some people, it's every time something hard shows up, they go through an experience of anxiety, or they perhaps get angry at people or angry at themselves, or whatever it is. You just become more familiar with that process, or it's more new to you, right? So for me, I did the same thing as what everybody else was doing. I may have seen the dragon coming earlier, but I still had oh shit, there's a dragon coming. What the fuck am I going to do? I still had that moment. I don't know what you do when a dragon shows up. This is new for me. And you freak out. I freaked out. And then that's when you're like, all right, Lee, you know how to deal with challenging shit. You've done this before. And so let's just try and do this the best that you can. You're either going to mess it up in a big way, or you're going to do yourself proud. And you'll definitely know how far you've come from previous things that have been traumatic for you. Who have, in your experience of this, who have been the people or the businesses that you have witnessed show great leadership, and what did that look like for you during this pandemic?
I don't know that I can name specific businesses, but I think I was telling you that one of the things that's been kind of fun is I've gone into the operations department and done a lot more operations than I've ever done in my life, or I've never done in the last 10 years of my life. And so for one day I was calling to get new credit cards because a lot of people had been customers of ours, but they hadn't purchased in a long time. And so their credit cards weren't working. And so I ended up picking up the phone and calling to get new credit cards. And it was interesting how many owners of businesses were the ones that answered the call. And we ended up having conversations about, oh, yeah, I'm down doing the operations of the company too. And so it was interesting to listen to the moods of the people that I've been talking to. And in general, I have heard moods of their optimism. I think that this is going to be okay, and a looking for possibilities and a looking for conversation. And when I talk to somebody who wants to hear the world from, what's your world like? Let me tell you what my world is like. And so when you say, I think having a community of people that you can call and talk to as a leader, to be able to start listening to the people around you and what they're saying, and how you can then take that information and go, how do I take that piece of information home? And I guess I just keep, Joyce is our marketing manager. And
shout out to Joyce. She's wonderful.
She really helps me understand what's going on in the specialty coffee market as well as in the world. And so she's always sending me videos and explaining to me what she's seen. And like just yesterday, I got something, or a couple days ago, I got something on counterculture, and counterculture has worked with NPR. I hope I got this right. NPR, and developed a coffee club, I think, is what they're calling it. And it's just been really interesting. I'm sure that's been in the works for a long time. But it can look like lucky. Wow, look what happened in COVID-19. Well, like you were saying, a lot of things that show up in COVID-19 are the things that you've been working on, or they've been working on, or someone's been working on, that all of a sudden it's the right thing at the right time.
Right.
There can be also businesses that have been doing something extremely creative, and it's exactly the wrong thing to have at COVID-19. And that doesn't mean that they weren't reading the world correctly or they aren't great leaders. What it means is, wow,
a dragon showed up.
The dragon showed up. And so I look at Baratza and say, wow, are we brilliant? No, we were not brilliant. If we would have known, we would have had 6 warehouses full of coffee grinders ready to go, but we didn't have. And if you went down to our warehouse right now, you'd go, there are no coffee grinders in this warehouse.
Mm.
It's empty. But we happen to have a container arriving every week. So right now what's happening is we're living off the containers, which were actually to get our inventory ready for Christmas. So
Wow.
our warehouse is empty. It's usually, we have 6 months of very busy and we have 6 months of pretty light. And we have to keep our manufacturing facilities so they can build all year long.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is we try to buy about the same amount all through the year. And in September, the warehouse is groaning full. And then September, October, November, December, January, February, we empty it.
Right.
Then we begin the process of refilling it. That's a small business and how we work it, but
that's so smart.
And so what ended up
and
happening,
thoughtful.
well, at the end of February, our warehouse was pretty low on coffee grinders, and then March hit with COVID-19. And our warehouse was already pretty low. And then within a couple weeks, it was really cleaned out. And so we were very lucky that we already had containers coming in every week. And then we doubled up some. But the other issue is this is happening globally. So COVID-19, as I'm sure you talked about in your coffee buying and other things, this is happening all over the world. Yeah. And people are buying coffee grinders for home all over the world. And so our global importers are also buying huge numbers of grinders. So our manufacturer is working overtime to keep grinders coming out of our little factory. And so it's just been a real interesting. So we lucky. Yeah, we were lucky that we had a container coming in every week that we can continue to drop ship grinders. We can continue to meet the demands kind of our resellers. We're rationing grinders to almost everybody. But yeah, we were lucky. And I think you can look around at different businesses and think there's a great leader there because they're winning, and there's a bad leader there because they're losing. But leadership isn't about winning and losing. It's actually about being able, like you've been saying, is responding to the breakdowns, the problems,
adaptability,
the possibilities, and being able to take care of all you can, and that there are going to be failures and there's going to be problems, and that's where you grow and learn. And that's the fun of it. It's actually fascinating to look back at the 20 years of Baratza and go, wow, we had some really not great things happen to us. We made some big mistakes. But when we look back at 20 years, we mostly remember the great things that happen. And every once in a while, somebody says, well, what about? And it's like, yeah, that was not a real great move.
But you get better at it, right? Like in the sense, and I hope that I drove that home in the presentation, the idea that leadership is a learnt skill. It's a muscle you have to learn how to flex and take care of, and grab these little tools that you find along your journey. And the same problem that you had 20 years ago shows up today, and it doesn't feel like a problem at all, right?
Exactly. Well, I was thinking when I was looking at some of these questions that had come in, and I wasn't so sure I was exactly the right person to have this conversation because I wasn't sure how I would answer a lot of these questions. But I think leadership for me isn't something you can read in a book, and it's not something you're going to learn in 2 hours, like you said. It's a performance.
Oh, I love that, Kira.
And And I think we sometimes think, oh, I can listen to this blog and I'll become a leader, or I'll interview. Well, since I think probably a lot of the people here are coffee people, you didn't become a great barista by reading a book or looking at
pressing a button.
And I make cappuccinos quite a bit, and I'm not sure. I never feel comfortable when somebody who's a great coffee person comes to my house and wants to have a cappuccino. But I've taken a lot of classes.
I'm sure you'd make an amazing
class back 20 years ago, and before another 4-hour class, and I'm still not a barista.
Yeah.
So part of it is you have a good coach, you have a good teacher, you do a lot of practicing, right? And
a lot of hard work.
Make the espresso, to steam the milk correctly, to still am not very good at my latte art.
I can help you with that one.
So, and then how do you do it quickly? Joyce and I once took our espresso machine to church and decided that we were going to make cappuccinos for everybody during
good luck with that.
hour. And I think we served like 80, and it ended up that at first we thought one of us would do it and the other one would just chat. Then we realized, somebody needs to be grinding and making espresso. Other ones needs to be, and you were at a coffee shop waiting to happen. But for Currencies, we were much better the third Sunday we did it, which was probably the last one because it was way too much work. But I think we forget that whether you want to play tennis, whether you want to be a great barista, whether you want to do podcasts and be an interviewer. I was telling you that probably 3 years ago when you started this, you were not the best interviewer. Now, I don't know because I wasn't listening.
Okay, I thought you were making a statement. I'm like, okay.
No.
Thanks, friend. I have no idea.
Years later, you're a master at
thank you.
Interview people, being able to maneuver in a conversation. You're good at making the people you interview feel comfortable and taken care of, but you're also willing to ask the very difficult questions that people might not want to answer. So you didn't become a great interviewer by reading a book and thinking, oh, this is how you interview people. You did it 3 years of doing it. I think you started it once a month, and then you went to once a week, and then you went to every day.
I think I've had one version or another of a podcast for about 10 years.
Oh, okay.
And it's but not in the coffee industry. This podcast has evolved in a big way over 3 years. It's, it went from something being like, oh, we'll do this every now and then. We'll try and aim for one every couple of weeks. It'll be great if we can do one every couple of weeks, to now we do it daily.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing.
And just for anyone who's under any misguided conception that I, don't have help, I do want to direct you to Mr. Brett Turner, and he has been a saving grace, particularly helping me put this event together. And Brett is the podcast producer, and it's wonderful as a leader to be able to say, all right, so what's my next big fear journey? And what's the next big hard thing I'm going to do? I'm going to learn how to trust people. You and I have talked a lot about this on our walk and talks. And my life journey has led me to always want to trust people. And then I've just been knocked down too many times by going on the journey of trusting people. And then this, for me, COVID-19 was about, all right, what do I want to get out of the end of this? What fear am I closest to here that I can get free from? And it was trusting people. And so inviting Brett into my world of producing this podcast has been the greatest reward of COVID-19, because it showed me so many things, but it showed me that people can show up for you the way that they say that they can show up for you professionally. And I was a little disheartened that way. And it wasn't that I was coming from a victim position. It was that I was trying to understand what I was doing that was causing the wrong people to show up. What choices was I making? Was I choosing the wrong people? Was I choosing a particular type of person and being ignorant or naive to other personality traits? And I realized that I was bringing a level of naivety to the way I was hiring people. And that was really hard to admit to myself. But if leadership, self-leading has taught me anything, and leading other people, it's that if you want to ignore stuff, that's fine. It's not going anywhere. If I want to ignore my naivety, that's fine. It doesn't mean I'm going to stop being naive. And so looking at that naivety and realizing that it was directly correlated to it was the cause of this dysfunctional little circle that led me into not trusting people. I'm like, all right, so how do I take this naive thing, unpack it and understand where it came from and why I developed that skill, why I'm so naive about certain things, and how do I start schooling myself different? Because it's nobody else's responsibility to school me about those things. It's my responsibility to school myself. It doesn't mean I don't have support. It doesn't mean that I can't pick up the phone and call my friend Kira and say, hey, listen, so I don't understand why I keep fucking this up. It doesn't mean that the people around you that you can trust, that you can reveal your vulnerabilities, can't say, hey, listen, have you thought about this? And then you look at that and you say, all right, so I'm going to try this. You take a deep breath and you look at all the hard shit you've done before, and you've got this like foundational trust that says, I've done hard shit, I've failed, but I've succeeded as well. And I've learnt from all of that. And in all the fails and the successes, I think I've got some tools that will show me how to fail with less catastrophe this time than I have in the past when I tried to do this thing. And this has worked out really, really well for me. And I hope for Brett.
Well, I call that your edge, working on your edge.
Yeah.
And that there's constantly new edges. So you get something, you kind of get something and you feel like, oh, I think I'm getting better at this. And then you have that area that's always the swirl. I have lots of swirls. And you go, man, I just keep having the same problem over and over again.
Yeah.
So, and I'm actually working on some edges too, but I kind of love the idea of an edge. Seems like a cliff to me.
Yes.
And, you fall off and, I'm not sure I like that edge. And somebody in my class said, I look at edges as the cliff, and what you're doing is you're hoping to catch the wind that's going to bring you up. And so you come
off. Great visual.
It is a great visual. And so you're walking off this edge, and yet you really believe that what's going to happen in your fall is that you're going to learn, you're going to grow, you're going to have conversations, you're going to have people around you, and you eventually will end up floating up like a balloon, and then you're done with that edge, or you're.
Yeah.
And so you, on your trust, you've fallen off the cliff a few times, and you hadn't caught that upwind draft.
Right.
And this time you, and I really love that way of looking at learning.
Yes.
we're really trying to learn the stuff that's pretty painful and pretty scary. And we all have different things that are scary and painful for us. And so, but we all have our edges that we can be working on. And how do you look at your edge? And I love that now of, oh no, this edge is going to get me to be a person that can take more actions, create more value, make a difference in my life and other people's lives, and that all thrive, and we as a world can thrive. So.
Oh my Lord, I love that. We have a question from a friend of mine, Reggie Black. Shout out to Reggie. He just came through on the live chat, and Reggie's an interesting cat. Reggie and I met through somebody, and we knew instantly the moment that we met that we'd probably be friends for life. He happened to be visiting Sydney, and he's an artist, and he loves coffee and is a fan of Elixir. And we haven't been in contact for some time, but we've followed each other on social media, and Reggie's question has just come through. And he says, what advice would you guys give to anyone that has admired, enjoyed, and interacted with the coffee culture from a distance for years, but now using the shift in the world to start a business in coffee? I think it's a really interesting moment to look at a question like this. And we're going to wrap up with this question because I don't know how that was an hour.
Yeah, it was a walk through the park.
The beginning of the walk through the park. But what advice would you have for someone like Reggie? Because this is the reason I think that's a really great question to end on is because this is a moment of opportunity and hope and adaptiveness and pivoting and looking at what you're being presented with right now and facing that edge, as you put it, and making the decision of how close do I want to get? Do I want to walk off? And how am I going to time this so that I can aspire to my greatest success?
Woo, that's a good one. The first reaction, I'm sure many people who are listening, and maybe me too, was really now? And I am getting lots of people who are brand new in the industry that want to sell our grinders. And I go, wow, this would be a tough time. But, there would be another way to look at it. And that is to say, with an industry that is going to be going through big changes, which I think the coffee industry and many other hospitality
most certainly
are going to be going through big changes. It's oftentimes the people outside of the industry that can see things that people within the industry can't see.
Great point.
And over time, you always think of like Kodak pictures where we all used to be taking our pictures and having to take them and get them printed and developed. And then digital came and everybody's going, why didn't Kodak just move into digital? Well, because they were so stuck in a way of looking at images and how images were produced. And they had so much money tied up in a certain way of looking that they were not able to make that transition. And so how do we as business people, or a newcomer, look and say, what's missing? What are the possibilities here? What are other people not able to see? And I think not only for Reggie, as he's wanting to get into the coffee industry, is looking at what is something that you see that somebody who's owned a cafe, roasted coffee, made coffee, built coffee grinders, whatever that is, can't see, because we're completely blinded by this is the way the world is, instead of this is the way the world could be. And at Baratza, we have that same problem, is we see grinders in a certain way. And it's always really interesting to go out and look around at other equipment. other people that are developing grinders, espresso machines, copiers, boats, whatever it is, and what's new in the industry. What are they doing differently? What could we bring into a grinder that's never been used in a grinder before? And so Reggie comes with a disadvantage and an advantage of being able to look at coffee in a very different way than most of us who are sitting here listening to you are looking at coffee.
I love that answer. And I'm going to add a couple of things to that. I love how you used the idea of perspective, because I see perspective and your ability to find ways to get new perspective a really valuable toolkit in leadership. You know, it lends itself to this idea of openness, that I don't want to see things I don't have to be right. I've got to see things from the way that other people see it so I can continue to be creative and inspired. And I think that the challenges that that Reggie, that's me molding Reggie Black all together and come out with Jerry. The challenges that Reggie has are actually fixable, because you can get a coach to teach you, and find any coach. I'm not plugging Map It Forward. We are one version of that. Find a coach that can help you and mentor you through all the challenges that you will anticipate through that, someone who has the experience. But at the core of your decision making should be, and this is what I've been telling everybody through this pandemic who wants to get into business, find a problem and solve it.
Mm-hmm.
And monetize that problem. So if you're looking at coming into an industry and trying to figure out a way to make cappuccinos, you're not solving any problems. There are a lot of people that know how to make cappuccinos. Find a problem that either people are experiencing that are consumers of coffee, or find a problem that people who work in the coffee industry are experiencing, and solve that. And get someone who can coach you through that process, that can, through their experience, help you learn quickly through their network or through the wisdom that they've put together, that can help piece together the holes that you've got through what you're doing. Because a lot of the stuff that's missing in our industry right now is people who are prepared to, with grit, do the work that's required to solve the problems that are happening.
Well, one of my favorite guys, Seth Godin, is one of my favorite brilliant guys, and I read his blog every morning. And it's always, his big thing is go out and create value.
Yes.
Go out and do something that somebody actually would want.
Yeah.
They can't get anywhere else, or is different, or whatever. And it might take you a lot of failures to go, oh, well, I'm going to make a better cappuccino, or I'm going to make a different brewer, or I'm going to make this. And all of a sudden you go, the thing that people are really struggling with is, and I think we're seeing so many cool innovations that many of us, instant coffee, new kinds of instant coffee, new
business strategies.
Exactly. And so it's kind of easy to go back and say everything's been done. I can't
That's the perspective
see
thing.
Possibility, right? Instead of being able to say, when I'm listening to the world, when I'm listening to the world of specialty coffee, what am I hearing?
Yeah,
that's different, and being able to listen. And like I said, I have a choice. I actually have an entire management team that's talking to me all the time about what they're seeing, what problems they're seeing, what new ways we could do things. And it's a kind of listening to perspective, I guess, is your perfect world of how do we be better? How do we create more value for the people we touch? And again, it's your stakeholders, isn't it? It's what they care about, is how do I take care of the cares of the consumer, the reseller,
The purpose,
employee.
everything.
Yeah, exactly. What is that purpose?
What a brilliant spot to end our discussion today and our 3 days of what I hope is an inaugural event called A New Coffee Industry. I appreciate you, my friend, and thank you for being a part of this very important event and milestone for me in my life. Keep doing the amazing things that you're doing. It really inspires me as a person, as a woman, as a leader, all of it. And to everyone who joined us, thank you for trusting us and the people who are giving so generously of their wisdom and their time to be here and to show up and to hopefully impart some knowledge on you that inspires you to be the best version of yourself. That's all I humbly bring to the world, is the intention that we can help you be a better version of yourself today than you were yesterday, whatever better means for you. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so. And I hope that this has all been inspirational to you. Thank you to Brett Turner. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you to our sponsors, Baratza, Elixir Specialty Coffee, Costa Oro and Mill City Roasters. And don't forget to check out our podcast as well as checking out the group coaching for Ann Cooper, and that I'll be doing mapitforward.org/group coaching. On that note, I'm officially closing our 3-day event. Peace, love, and peanut butter, everyone. Have an amazing rest of your day. Hi, friends. Coffee-focused small businesses around the world have been impacted immensely due to the shutdowns that have resulted from the coronavirus pandemic. From coffee producers to roasters to cafe owners and the workforces that are associated with those businesses, the whole value chain has been devastated. Coffee for the Frontline is an initiative that is focused on stimulating coffee small businesses worldwide, while also giving the general public the chance to thank and support frontline workers that have been instrumental during the coronavirus pandemic. Here's how it works. A member of the general public finds a coffee small business that's registered with the program, either on social media or by searching our website. They then purchase a gift card through that small business's online store. The small business connects the person who's purchased the gift card with a registered frontline worker, who then goes and redeems the gift card directly on that small business's website. Hello again. Coffee for the Frontline is a program that was developed by Map It Forward to stimulate small businesses in the coffee industry during the coronavirus pandemic. Here's the basics of how the program works. You register to be a part of the Coffee for the Frontline program and get assigned a landing page that allows frontline workers to register and sends new customers to your website where they'll purchase a gift card that you've created specifically for this program. Once a customer purchases a gift card, you'll email them details about the frontline worker from the data we've provided you with. That customer then forwards their gift card onto the frontline worker, who will go and redeem it on your website. The marketing ROI to you is extensive, and the program has been put together so that the benefits to everybody involved are endless. Customers feel great because they've helped to keep you in business and a frontline worker caffeinated. Frontline workers feel supported through the gratitude of a stranger, and your coffee small business gets to fight another day with dignity, all with the added benefit that new connections are being made along the way. See the signs that I say.